So for about a year now, we've been in the new console generation with the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. While normally this would be an extremely exciting time, I think this generation feels different so far. As a result of the state of the world when these consoles launched, the chip shortage, and many game delays, it almost feels like it hasn't really been able to actually start yet. Just take 2021 for example, where we saw almost all of Sony's big hitters get delayed. God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Gran Turismo 7 all got pushed into 2022. But despite that, Sony still delivered an incredible catalog of games from launch, such as the likes of Demon's Souls, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Astro's Playroom, and Returnal. I really mean that, by the way. Let's be honest, most launches tend to either be very sparse, and the few games you do get tend to be not so good. So the fact that we got that many, and that almost all of them were great, is honestly insane and really rare. So even though a lot of Sony's games got delayed, the fact that they already had a very good start put them on much better ground to make up for it in a way. Xbox, however, was in a very different position with the start of the Series X and S. Halo Infinite, their flagship launch game, had been delayed, leaving the only game at launch from their first party being Gears Tactics. Which I gotta be honest, I don't know why so many people act like this game didn't exist. When you hear people talk about the launch, they act like nothing was there at all. Put some respect on my... There was also Gears 5 Hivebusters in December, which was a DLC, but if you weren't already into Gears, these two probably didn't do much for you. It was pretty barren. But hey, at least Tetris Effect Connected is beautiful and on Game Pass. And now if you'll excuse me. I'm yours forever. There's no end in sight for us, nothing could Rightfully so, people were questioning what the first year of the new console would look like. After all, Microsoft had acquired tons of new studios, but the issue was that many of them had either finished games recently, like Wasteland 3, or had only just begun their next games. So they had nothing ready yet, which is why I would guess their 2020 showcase was mostly CGI trailers. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place essentially, and it seemed like we were going to have to be patient. And boy oh boy, would it be patience. In the meantime, however, Game Pass, being the little overachiever that it is, would prove to be a system-selling exclusive in and of itself. They got games like MLB The Show 21 and Outriders Day 1 to fill in the early gaps of the year. And honestly, that was pretty good to give people something to play in the meantime, because we're still going to be waiting a while. E3 would be an avalanche of new announcements from Microsoft, not only being their best received conference in years, but also revealing the release dates for Psychonauts 2, Age of Empires 4, and Forza Horizon 5 for the first time. However, it wouldn't be until July, a whole 9 months after the console launched, that the Series X and S would get its next first-party game. Microsoft Flight Simulator, which had been incredibly well received the previous year on PC, was now available on console for the first time. Then came Psychonauts 2 in August, a wonderfully creative and acclaimed game from Double Fine, and while yes, I'm aware this game is technically multi-platform, this is still from a studio that is now part of Microsoft. One who has gone on record saying that Psychonauts 2 wouldn't have been the game it was had it not been for the extra money and time Microsoft provided. Deathloop is also in a similar situation where the game isn't even on Xbox at the moment, ironically enough, yet it's still from an Xbox studio now, so who gets the credit here? Age of Empires 4 would be very well received, and Forza Horizon 5 would end up being the highest rated game of the year, with Deathloop and Psychonauts 2 right behind it, with the latter two being nominated for Game of the Year as well. All that was left was to wait for Halo Infinite, and while the possibility of Halo not delivering wouldn't have taken away from the incredible successes of Psychonauts 2 and Forza Horizon 5, Forza having already hit 10 million players in 1 week, it almost felt like the essential metaphorical cherry on top. The game had added so much more pressure and attention that it felt like it would cement the tone for the output from Xbox for the rest of the generation, for good and bad reasons. And from everything that is being said so far, it's a good video game. In all honesty though, I tend not to care too much for review aggregate scores. I feel like some people put way too much emphasis on that alone instead of just trying the game themselves. But still, I can't even imagine the sigh of relief 343 Industries is breathing right now in seeing the reaction from people. In what can only be described as an incredible turnaround, Microsoft somehow managed to go above and beyond simply salvaging their first year. We went from a very barren first half and worrisome year to them having one of their best lineups in what feels like forever, with many of the games being the highest rated of the year, and in many of the Game of the Year nominations. If there was any time Microsoft needed to prove themselves as a serious player again, this was certainly it. And I think this sets an incredible tone for the rest of the generation. It doesn't mean everything is going to be a surefire hit. After all, nobody gets everything right. But this is a damn good start. As we look forward to 2022 with games like Redfall, Starfield, and more, one thing is certain. This year has definitely shown that Xbox is going to be in a very different place this generation. And for a good reason. And it's going to be exciting.